So my name is Katie Cohen. I am a member of the Endocrine Surgery Identity Committee and part of a subgroup focused on endocrine surgeons' online reputation. And so we are honored to be talking about this really important topic. As anyone who probably looked for a restaurant in Dallas or did any online shopping, consumer reviews are becoming increasingly important, and this is also true in healthcare. So we have put together a panel of excellent speakers to discuss kind of the evidence behind provider online reputation and reviews, as well as some AAES member data for us to all take a look at, as well as pearls of wisdom from experts on how to work on your online reputation from both an academic and private practice perspective, and then how to identify yourself as an endocrine surgeon on some of the review sites. And with that, we'll get started. I am excited to introduce my co-chair, Dr. Ozzie Carr, Associate Professor at USC, who's going to be talking about the evidence base behind provider reviews that we were able to find, and then some of our AAES data that we've collected.
Good morning. I want to thank the AAES for giving us the opportunity to present some of the work that Katie and I have been doing over the last year. So, should we be asking patients to review us? Whether we ask patients to review us or not, those reviews are out there. Your institution may be garnering reviews on all your patients or a select group of your patients, and websites like Healthgrades and Vitals automatically create profiles for physicians and can capture your reviews. So, next we have to ask, do these reviews matter? Do patients use these reviews to choose physicians? This is a developing field with certain specialties devoting more time to research in the area than others. So we want to provide some background before our other panelists talk more about developing your review profile. So first I wanted to share some surveys on the use of reviews. This study performed an online survey of 1,388 patients from a Qualtrics online panel. Data was collected in November and December of 2018. They had varied demographics, although skewed slightly to younger age groups, different education levels, varied location settings. And the things that were most important in decision making for the patients were participation in their insurance plan, how quickly they could be seen, office location and cost. However, at least 43% of them were using online reviews to help in their decision making. This other study looked at which factors are important for women choosing breast reconstruction surgery. It was a survey of 1,025 adult women surveyed in October 2019 and asked if they had breast cancer and needed a mastectomy, how they would choose a plastic surgeon. The responses were weighted, and the most important decision-making factor for these patients were online reviews. Breaking it down into subsections, they looked at reputation, which include reviews, being in practice for greater than 10 years, top 20 medical schools, personal or surgeon recommendation, and being from an academic center. Those were the highest drivers for decision making. But also important factors were, which may not always be changeable, were appearance and demographics. So although these were just two studies, they show variable results, and it still likely indicates that at least 50% of patients will be using reviews as part of their decision-making process. So we wanted to see if the endocrine surgeons, how are they being represented in reviews? So we our subgroup reviewed the AAES membership from 2023. We identified 418 surgeons with complete profiles from the AAES website. We found a majority were academic, followed by academic affiliated, majority in the southeast and northeast. And we looked at how many reviews these surgeons have. The highest number of reviews were practice reviews, which included institutional or hospital-based practice reviews. These are reviews that may be solicited from all patients or a select group of patients by your institution. And overall, these reviews had a higher average rating. Next were Google, followed by Healthgrades and Vitals. and these had lower overall review numbers. This may be related to the fact that a majority of surgeons do not claim their Google Healthgrades or Vitals profiles. Institutions may also have restrictions on your ability to claim these profiles. There were a greater number of Google reviews for private surgeons than both academic and academic affiliated surgeons. And academic and affiliated surgeons had more practice webpage ratings than private surgeons. There were some variations too based on location in which reviews, Vitals versus Healthgrades were used, but those were not significant. So there are not studies in endocrine surgery on what impacts reviews, but in plastic surgery, there's been a number of studies, and one's meta-analysis of abdominoplasties looked at what were the highest drivers for reviews, and aesthetic outcome, naturally, was the most likely driver. Also important were interactions with staff and post-operative diligence. The lowest drivers, which these means they did not affect the reviews as significantly, were post-operative complications and cost, which was maybe surprising that the post-operative complications did not drive reviews as significantly, but I think it relates to they were most satisfied when there were high interactions with staff and good post-operative diligence. There was a review of 560 cardiology reviews on Yelp, and the highest review drivers were perceived competency and knowledge, interactions with staff, and lower ratings were associated with certain demographics. In orthopedics, there's been a number of studies looking at reviews. Some of the areas that they've found drive more positive reviews were being in academic practice, and actually in orthopedic surgery, they have found that people who have been in practice fewer years tend to have higher reviews than people who have been in practice for a longer period of time. Things that drove negative reviews were poor bedside manner, poor outcome, longer wait times, and lower perceived surgeon proficiency. And looking at another review from orthopedics, they found that a higher social media presence was actually associated with higher overall ratings. And again, older age and longer wait times were associated with lower overall ratings. So none of these studies were in endocrine surgery, but could be relatable to our field. Since that last study did show that there was a greater, surgeons who had a greater social media presence did have higher reviews. There was this one study from 2022 looking at professional internet presence among endocrine surgeons in the United States, looked at 417 endocrine surgeons. And LinkedIn and Twitter were the most commonly used platforms. However, 27% of surgeons had no professional internet presence, and academic surgeons had higher professional internet presence than community-based surgeons. So this is definitely an area in which we can potentially improve our impact. I hope this provides some background on why reviews are important, and some of our next speakers will talk more on how to get those reviews. Thank you.
Excellent. So our next speaker is Dr. James Lee, who is a professor of surgery at Columbia. And you know, besides being an excellent human, we chose him because when we did our member review, he had a number of high-quality reviews across a variety of sites, and so we thought maybe he could share some of those pearls with us as an academic surgeon.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the privilege of talking to you today about reputation management from the academic's standpoint. I have a few disclosures, none of which are really relevant to this talk. So this morning, I'm going to briefly talk about how to navigate your institution's digital landscape and finish off with some very practical strategies for getting high quality and meaningful reviews that range from high to low resource intensity. So for those of us in academic or institution-based practices, the first step in this journey is learning and understanding your local landscape. Usually your best bet is to get clarity is to find the person with a title of Director of Marketing or Digital Strategy And what you really want to know is how does your institution coordinate its digital strategy among all the different departments, right? Before the healthcare industry recognized the value of digital strategy, most places had this hodgepodge of efforts where departments and even individuals were driving the train. This is very rarely the case anymore. And almost every case, institutions are deciding on an institutional strategy and imposing it on the departments in this hub and spoke model. So in some rare circumstances, like Columbia, there's a hybrid model. So when I was the vice chair for digital strategy, we knew we had to excel in this space, right? Just too important. So we came up with our own strategy, and we soon garnered higher traffic across basically all of our digital channels and higher viewership than the entire medical center combined. So we became the dominant voice in our digital landscape, and we still have our own shop today that sort of acts like a skunk work that informs the larger institution's digital strategy. So regardless, it's important to figure out who's in charge of what in your basic landscape, like who controls your profile, your web and search engine optimization so that your sites surface to the top of the list. Clearly social channels are important, and of course reputation management. The most important of all of these is managing your online profile, because if people can't find you, none of the other stuff matters, right? So ultimately your profile is going to help enable robust reputation management. So just to give you an example of why all this matters, so if you do a search for me, I come up as 9 of the 10 top hits in Google, and this is great, this is what we want. But this is especially important because there are 13 James Lee MDs who practice in my geolocated area. And before we did this optimization of profiles, we were sort of all mashed together in this kind of hodgepodge of a rotating rank list. In fact, there's a James J. Lee who also does thyroid surgery 2 miles away from me. So it's incredibly important for us to, dominate the top hits so that way we can kind of crowd them out. On the right-hand side, you can see that we've claimed my Google business account, which is probably the single most important thing you can do, because almost every online session these days starts with a Google search. You can see the information is very clean, all the addresses and details are up to date. And you'd think this was a given, but when we originally started this optimization process, my phone number was the other James Lee's phone number. So we were literally sending him business. So even though I'm listed as an endocrine surgeon here a surgeon instead of an endocrine surgeon, I was originally listed as an endocrinologist, so this is definitely improvement. And Travis is going to talk to you about an AAS initiative that helps address some of these things. So it's incredibly important, great work that Travis and the rest of the group has done. So this all highlights just that there's an incredible potential for incorrect information to be online that needs to be carefully curated. That's so important because 77% of people will say that incorrect information in a profile negatively impacts how they view the doctor from a clinical standpoint. And then if you magnify all of this across all of the sites that are out there, you've got a real problem. Because there are literally hundreds of sites where people can find and review doctors. There's Google, of course, the heavy hitters in the space, Vitals and Healthgrades, as Azzy mentioned. Then you've got service sites like ZocDoc, the big name ranking sites, Castle Connolly, US News, social channels clearly important, and then places like Yelp. Yelp is the place where you go to find out where you're going to eat dinner. Even Yelp has doctor reviews. And then there are literally hundreds and hundreds of doctor-specific review sites. Even if you restrict yourself to the top 10 review sites, it's a huge, huge lift. So there are a few general principles that can help you out with this, though. So the first is focus on just a few sites. So the ones that I would recommend, Google, Healthgrades, Vitals. What you're going to find is that most of the doctor review sites that are out there, including high-power sites like US News, they all just repost reviews from these 3 sites. And if you can only focus on one, focus on Google. That's by far the biggest bang for your buck. It's the internet's front door, and everyone is using it these days. Next, you have to optimize your profile. So clearly make sure that the basics are correct, phone numbers, insurances, all that stuff. Use keywords that you use across all of your digital channels, so that way you can optimize your search engine optimization. Especially for surgeons, it's important to talk about your volume because patients are sophisticated enough to know that in our business, more is usually better. Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Make sure you include an up-to-date picture that expresses some of your warmth, and one of the most powerful things you can do is to have a brief video profile, right? Saying you're compassionate doesn't really carry the same weight as people seeing it in an interview or an interaction with a patient. And then you want to try and inject some of your personality and talk about why you went into medicine, what you love about the field and taking care of patients, et cetera. Once you have updated your profile, once you've made your profile, you should update it frequently. So just set a recurring calendar reminder to do this every 6 months. If you don't, you're going to forget it and you'll never do it again. So the great news about all this is that you don't have to do this yourself. In fact, there are dozens of companies out there that can help you claim and maintain your profiles. And if you're at an institution of any reasonable size, I can guarantee you that someone is already using one of these third parties to do profile management. Your job is to help them out and verify some of this information for them. If they aren't doing this, you have to convince them to do it. It's just way too hard for an individual to do this across the hundreds of sites that you need to do it for. All right, on to a few very specific strategies for getting reviews. So when it comes to reviews, a patient's decision-making process really boils down to 3 findings, right? So total number of reviews, and there's a critical mass around 40 to 50 where people start to feel really comfortable with the accuracy of the reviews. The average star rating is also incredibly important. You know, data from comparable industries say that an average rating, a minimum rating of about 3.2 is when people start to really interact with a brand, and that only 13% of people will actually consider going to someone with 1 or 2 star ratings. The number of reviews and star ratings are sort of like that MCAT threshold, right, that you have to meet to even be considered. But what the patients say about you is really the magic of reviews, and that's how people really start to make their decisions about choosing you. We all know this intuitively, right? So very few of us would feel comfortable going to this physician, right? It's just kind of suspicious to not have any internet presence in this day and age. And while this doctor has 11 reviews and 3.2 star rating, not great, but at least it's better, and you'd at least consider maybe seeing this doctor until you see comments like this, you know, rude beyond belief, and then you keep your search going until you find this guy. This physician has 87 reviews, great star rating, and then comments like this, and pretty soon, you found your doctor. So how do you get these reviews? Let me give you a spectrum of ideas that fit all kinds of infrastructures and budgets. Let's start off with a high-cost, high-tech solution. So those same reputation management companies most often offer a suite of services that range from review solicitation to what we call review trapping, i.e. Trying to shunt unfavorable reviews to an internal remediation process so they never see the light of Google. So these services can be quite expensive, but they can also be incredibly, incredibly effective. If your institution doesn't want to pay for this, you can take a middle road. So you can have your administrative team email a request out to patients requesting a review. So the downside to this strategy is it does impose a slight administrative burden to your team, but the benefits are many. First off, I know it can feel kind of awkward asking patients to give you a review. So this process removes it from you, right? It just makes it one of those many things that happen at checkout as part of the business of the visit. Second, it leverages that patient's altruism. It helps them feel like they're doing something valuable by helping other patients find the care that they need. And perhaps most importantly, you can select those patients with whom you've had a good interaction, right? So this is the technique we use at our shop, and we typically send this request, send this request after the patient's post-operative visit when we know that they're a happy, satisfied customer. And the great thing about this email is that it makes it as easy as possible for the patient. When you click on this link, it takes you straight to the review site that you're targeting. And we do use this system to target very specifically sites where we need more reviews. And this can be a very powerful tool to bury a bad review and to increase your traffic in other sites. And so Michael's going to talk about that a little bit as well. So the most basic, least resource-intensive, yet highly effective tool is to have a card that you hand out. It has all the same information. It has a nice QR code that takes them directly to the site you're targeting. And this works remarkably well for being so simple, right? One of our endocrinologists started doing this, and she garnered 100 new reviews within a span of 6 months, which is absolutely incredible. Like, this is a numbers game, right? So not every patient you send a request to is going to give you a review. It's going to be 1Z, 2Z for a long, long time until you can build up enough of a volume. So in conclusion, we know that online reviews are incredibly important for practice building. You should find out who's in charge of your institution's digital strategy and the services that they offer. And most importantly, there are lots of ways to optimize your review game, from expensive to stunningly simple. So thank you very much, guys.
So now I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Richard Harding, who is a successful private practice surgeon in Arizona and a fellow member of the ESIC. Talk about reviews in the private practice world.
Thank you. I'm going to take this from a different angle. That was a hard act to follow. I would like to say that being a part of the AES has been a major part of my practice and my enthusiasm toward my career in endocrine surgery. Years ago, I was at the Boston meeting, and while I was there, I was visiting friends from high school and college. And so Boston was quite a long time ago. And I was telling them that I would do a lot of thyroid surgery in Phoenix, and I'm quite busy doing that. And they said, well, let's look you up on the internet. At which time they looked me up and they said, we can't find you. They looked up thyroid cancer, can't find you. Thyroid surgery, can't find you. So that was a big problem. So at that point, I decided I really needed to do something more to increase my internet exposure. So at that time, I was in a multi-specialty group, which I still am, and my practice was much different than many of my partners because of my focus on endocrine surgery. And so I chose to have my own internet site, which was the HardingGeneralSurgery.com. And basically, I'm still a general surgeon. I still do a fair amount of hernias and that sort of thing. But most of it is endocrine surgery. So on the website, there's a big focus for endocrine surgery. And it was more of a billboard type of internet site where people could find you, but it didn't do a lot at that site. And there was not a lot of information on there that would basically cause the Google search engine to find me. So I worked with my website designer, and we worked on adding more content to that, which seemed to help. And again, the topics of exposure, or the topics that we wanted people to find with words, improved and increased. And then after a while, I started a new interest, which is thyroid RFA, and we wanted to get more business and exposure in that field. And so I thought, rather than waiting for my endocrinologist to send patients to me for this service, I decided to basically put out another website, which at that time was more of a billboard type website where patients could find me, which was the thyroidnodule-treatment.center, or thyroid.com at that time. We also have a big group. We have 44 surgeons now, and they have, or I should say we have our own internet website, which is azadvancedsurgery.com, and that's probably the least effective referral source for me. So over the years, I've been adding content to my websites, which I think has helped in terms of people finding me. So, and you can add links to that. You can have a lot of your post-op, pre-op information on there, and also literature reviews. But as people know, especially Barb Miller would know, that there's this huge variety of website functionality depending on your platform. So I eventually have moved my websites to a different platform, and that's dramatically improved the functionality and the user experience of the website, so that people can go from page to page to page and hopefully find the information that they're looking for on your website, which would encourage them to make the trip in. Because I'll see patients from Canada and Mexico and all over the United States. So of course the newer websites are much better with the Google search engine compatibility. So they're designed better to improve your exposure online if you switch to a newer platform. And then also the newer platforms allow you to add and modify the information online so that your website designer can do this for you very, very seamlessly, and they can do it remotely as well. So it makes it a lot better to modify your websites, on a almost a daily basis. So, and I'm of course not doing this myself. I'm actually having a professional do this for me. So I have played around with the Instagram and the Facebook, and in a way to increase my own exposure. It's fun. You need someone to help you with that. I can tell you I'm not at the age where I've done this myself. But they'll help, you can hire young people to do it for you, and they'll make it fun, and they'll add music to it. But you have to make sure that those sites will link, and it seems intuitive that this would happen, but that you would have your Instagram and your Meta post linked to your websites so they can find you there and get more information. So that's the intent, at least when you have your own Instagram and Facebook posts, and I have not used Twitter. So some people will encourage writing a blog. Blogs are great. You can add content to your website, and then as you add content, you can post it out there as a blog and keep sending it out. I've certainly not done that on a regular basis, but it's one way to increase your internet visibility. And then you have the companies, of course, which James was alluding to, which is the different review companies and the sites that will increase your reviews online. I did start with Podium, and it was very, very expensive. And the whole idea I liked about Podium was it had a chat box on your website. So if people went to your front page on your website, there was a chat box. They could message you. It would go to your cell phone. And then you get the message, you could text people right back. And it was one way for patients who, for some reason, weren't being able to reach the people in your office, could reach you and let you know that there was. And so I would send all my patients specifically to that so they could reach me specifically. And they could literally text me on my cell phone, which I thought was great. But it wasn't really worth the price, and it didn't really increase the reviews that much as the company would say. Whereas my other partners who were using Rise were seeing a dramatic increase in their reviews, and Rise has an automatic internal way where you can have it programmed so that everybody who's either pre-op or post-op can write a review. So we've got a program so the post-op patients get the reviews, and it's sent out on a weekly basis to all your post-op patients. So this is example Instagram. Again, you can find pictures. You have to send it to your website or your social media person. You just send them a load of pictures or give them access to your photos, and they'll select some pictures and they'll put it up there. I had before and after pictures for RFA, just ultrasound, thyroid stuff, and usually I just promote my endocrine stuff on this. But I didn't really notice that this had dramatically increased or even minimally increased the business through my office through this Instagram site as opposed to just my standard website. So I stopped doing this because it was an expense, but it's still there for patients to find out, to look at it. So what I don't have a slide on is my YouTube, and actually YouTube videos are surprisingly popular. And the YouTube videos that I've made local commercials talking about various things that we do. And the patients find those and they look those up, and you can make your own biopsy videos, and you can make videos of certain procedures that you do, and those get a lot of traffic. And so I would encourage that as a way for people to find you, because if they put your name up, YouTube is certainly one of those sites that also comes up in addition to the standard just Google review. So this is obviously the same type of thing. We have the cards that link them to Google and Yelp, and in this one, this just simply has the address printed on it, and where you hand it to them and say thank you very much, and you give this obviously to your most satisfied patients. And this is works okay. It's not that great. These are the RISE reviews, which works a lot better in my experience. And you can see that there's 1,700 requests for reviews down at the very bottom on the left, and the total reviews are 170 or something like that. And then this is a monthly report that they send out. And on this report, I had a bad month that month. My employees are quitting and not leave, or at least not showing up to work. People weren't calling them back. And so you get one negative review. This one negative review, you receive this and you can respond to it. And simply I responded by a phone call, and the person in this case who was choosing another surgeon because nobody called her back after this discussion where she was going to go to another surgeon to get her surgery, we talked it over, and at the end of the conversation she says, well, when are you going to schedule my surgery? And so you can respond to these reviews with either in writing or simply by a phone call, and this at least these give you an idea why they're mad or why they're giving you a review if they rate enough. So I don't typically respond online with a review, but certainly a phone call often helps. So some people will suggest to at least acknowledge a negative review by just saying, please, we would like to hear from you more about this topic. Thank you for your response. And then please contact us internally or we will contact you. And at least that just shows that you care. So the most important thing, I think, is to make it easy for the patients. And this is intuitive, makes sense, and is simply using the QR code. And this is not something that I have actually started long ago, so I can't give you any statistics on this, but you can basically take this QR code, and while the patient's in your office, they can take a picture of this QR code and pull up your website immediately, and it's on their phone now, so they don't have to type it in. And you can say, do you mind taking a picture of the code? You can just ask them, please take a picture of the QR code while you're here. Now, you can use the QR code for a couple things. One is just simply to link to your website, but also there's the Google review link generator that they have, and that will basically make a QR code specifically for your Google reviews. And then Wix, which is my website platform, will also make one for you as well. And they actually have an introductory video too that shows some other aspects of your practice while you're there. So you can have an introduction, kind of a ramp onto the review, talking about thank you for being here at our office. We aim to please, and have your mission statement on there as well. And then it'll link to the review. And this is how I have it in my office, which is basically, on a little sign that they can just, it's on the board. I use my X-ray boards as well for these reviews, because these X-ray boards now, I'm not using them for mammograms or X-rays anymore, and they're just sitting there. So I put all my QR codes on my X-ray board, and I have all the different ones for Yelp, and then for my website, and also Google on there. So I would encourage that as a way to make it simple for your patients. Thank you very much.
And besides everyone claiming their name on the web, Dr. Travis Cotton and his team, as part of this subcommittee, have done just incredible work about lobbying for endocrine surgery to be a specialty on these review sites, and he's going to tell you how to claim that under your profile.
Yeah, thank you. And so much good information presented here. It can be overwhelming, especially just depending on your resource, your comfort, how much experience, time. It can be really overwhelming what's out there. And so this is just going to be very quickly some actionable items that you can do at the airport on your way home today, if you haven't already done so on some of the high yield sites. And that's something just with categorization our committee has been working on. So a little of this review, but your online recognition, your footprint, incredibly important. Background information, training specialties, scope of practice, and I'll show you some screenshots just on where it's good to plug that in on the known websites that were mentioned that can be high yield, and so this is a screenshot from Healthgrades. If you look at that right upper corner. You can claim your profile. And so just a show of hands, how many people in the room have claimed their Healthgrades profile? Okay. So there's opportunity today. It exists whether you like it or not, and whether you want one or not. If you're an endocrine surgeon in this room, I guarantee you have one of these. It's out there. And if you're not claiming it, you're subject to information that may not be accurate, and you may not be optimizing that space. And particularly those who may not have some of the resources that James brought up. This is already there. The platform is there. It really doesn't cost anything, and it's just an easy way to claim your profile and begin to get things out there in a very simple manner. This is Vitals, so if you look right under my name there, you can click the hyperlink, claim your profile, and do it through Vitals as well. So there's a link on all these sites that you can just click and claim your profile. It usually asks for an email, and possibly some other relatively benign identifier information. I have not found, so I went through all this actually relatively recently in the last year or two, really kind of making sure I've claimed these. And you don't really get a lot of onerous junk mail and things like that. It hasn't been as invasive as maybe I thought it would be in undergoing that process. This is Doximity, which wasn't really mentioned, but I think is also an important one. You can join to view your full profile and establish a contact there. This is just a screenshot here, and what I wanted to point out is all these really kind of function the same. Once you're in them and editing your profile, you can generally give a summary, and that's where you give the kind of warmth, the blurb that kind of describes who you are, your philosophy, kind of maybe just giving patients more insight into what you do. You can also list your clinical expertise. Work experience oftentimes is I find to be kind of amazingly accurate usually, as far as maybe where you've been, what states you've worked in, medical license, things like that, your age, all kinds of things. And if you look over on the side of the screen there, it gives some more of the objective information, and if nothing else, it's so important to have, and I think James mentioned this, is to have a correct phone number and a correct address, and possibly website and fax number if that's important for your practice, but referrals, etc. But just updating the objective information, it's amazing how often it can be incorrect. And there's nothing worse as a patient than looking up the doc, even finding them and calling the number, and it goes to the wrong office or a dead number, or the fax number is really the phone number, so they get the blaring in the ear, and so just update the objective information. Very simple, low-hanging fruit to do, and that will lead to the correct locations, or if you have satellite offices, oftentimes there's some confusion there as to which offices in your group or your practice you actually go to. And just make sure it's accurate, if nothing else. It's such a easy to do, low-hanging fruit. And then, as I said, phone numbers and directions are on most of these sites, so you can kind of verify that all your bullet points are where they should be. One of the things I'm really excited about, we worked on this subcommittee, was identifying our members as endocrine surgeons on these sites. As of a year ago, that really wasn't there. It was just kind of surgery or general surgery. And we've made some headway this year with lobbying some of these sites, and there's a little more work to do. But if you look under my name there, endocrine surgery is now recognized on health grades as a dedicated specialty. So if you haven't logged in a while, or you're new to claiming your profile, you can now select endocrine surgery as a dedicated specialty that's recognized, and you don't kind of have to undergo a workaround anymore, which we were really excited to achieve this year. And that's just a close-up of how it will show up on the site, so pretty exciting. On Doximity, we're not quite there yet, but there is a way to select. If you look under MD, you can select general surgery, and then there's a subspecialty. You can do endocrine, so that's kind of the workaround we're on right now, and that will show up as general surgery endocrine, or if you did endocrine and general surgery, however you kind of think it works best with your profile. But that at least maybe gives some insight to patients as to what a subspecialty might be in the general surgery space on Doximity. And it'll show up something like this. So general surgery, endocrine, it doesn't say endocrinologist, but again, I've been working with Doximity. I'm hoping something's gonna pop up soon. And to James's point, checking periodically every 6 months just to make sure, things haven't changed and everything's, relatively accurate is certainly a good practice to set your timers on your phone. The other thing I'll mention is a lot of these sites are linked. So Doximity is linked very closely with U.S. News and World Report information. So if you update one, it kind of spills over into multiple sites. And so I think attacking these high yield sites is certainly important for kind of infiltrating maybe the other sites that piggyback off that. But Doximity and U.S. News certainly interchange their data. Vitals interchanges with WebMD. And this is very recent, actually, but they just opened after we've been working with them an endocrine surgery categorization under Vitals as well. So that's new. So if you haven't been to that, your profile updated or you're starting one, there is endocrine surgery representation Vitals. And then this is a sheet you can actually search like an area, et cetera, by endocrine surgeons who are registered that way. So again, very important to be categorized appropriately, and that will spill over into WebMD. Vitals WebMD is a little more involved in my experience. You have to submit, and then they will contact you, either email or even a telephone call. I actually did a phone call, it's kind of interesting, where they verify, and then you can get uploaded from there. So that's all I had. Low-hanging fruit, do it today if you haven't. Look for those endocrine surgery dedicated specialties so that you're recognized for the work and the volume of surgery that those in this room do. So thank you.
So I would just like to thank the AES for this opportunity and our incredible panelists for sharing their wisdom. I'd also like to thank Talia Abranikis, as well as Valerie Armstrong and Laura Cogwell, who did a lot of the data collection from everyone's profile for hours and hours, and then Phoebe Zhang for her leadership on this.